Learning. We're going to start by learning how to make data tables in Microsoft Excel. Here are a couple of things that we're going to make sure that we cover in the beginning of this video. So first, we're going to figure out how to find Excel on your computer. We're going to figure out how to add data, so just basic getting started and building a data table in Microsoft Excel. Number 3, we're going to be adding and removing columns and rows. So if you need to insert information that you might have forgotten, or we come to it later in the lab and you need to add a row or a column, we'll learn how to do that. 4th, we're going to be changing the size of boxes. 5, we're going to figure out how to add borders. And finally, we're going to learn how to merge cells. That is the last thing that you should be doing in this section of our video. So let's get started. We're going to take a look at finding Excel on your computer. The easiest way I think it is to find Excel on your computer is just to come up to the little spotlight section and you can search Excel. Microsoft Excel should pop up, and here you come to your first workbook. Into our workbook, we're just going to start adding our data. So looking at our data table that you received in class, or thinking about data that you want to be including if you're making your own data table, I'm just going to start typing in some information. I like to give myself at least one row on the top. These are our rows, and one column on the left. This is a column, just to make sure that I have enough space. I can always add more later. Here I go, starting to add my data. Notice that I'm leaving space for any blank boxes. I also like adding data based on our columns, if that makes your life easier. All right, I have almost all of the information that I need, except here are some of my headers. So D1 in centimeters, M2 in grams, D2 in centimeters. I do realize that a lot of these don't look exactly as they do on the data table that you were provided. That's okay. There are some formatting things that we're going to figure out as we go along. So, step 3, adding and removing columns. If I forgot to include a section, I might want to insert a row or a column. Our best friend, our best place to go is this top right section where it says Insert and Delete. Notice I'm in our Home tab at the top. I haven't changed into Insert or Page Layout, etc. So I stay in my Home tab and I come over here to Insert and Delete. If I look at this arrow down, it gives me some options of where I want to include them. So I can insert rows or I can insert columns. The most important thing to remember is that whichever you select, if you say insert a row, it's going to insert a row above where your cursor is. So for example, my cursor is currently in row 4. If I say insert row right now, it added a row above. If I'd like to insert a column, again, it adds it to the left. So right now, I'm in column C, and if I insert a column, notice how it inserts that column to the left. So again, they add to the left if it's a column, or above if it's a row. I now want to get rid of these because I don't need them. So instead of inserting, I'm going to use this delete button. Again, I can just click this arrow down, and I can delete column. And now if I'd like to delete the row, notice that I'm in row 4. Again, I don't need this row, so I'm going to delete the row. And I'm back to how I was before. Step 4, changing the size of boxes. Right now, I have more information in some of these boxes than there is space for. So it's important to be able to make these boxes bigger or smaller depending on the needs of my data table. The most important step to start with is to select all of your columns or all of your rows that you want to change in size. So again, to do that, I selected the letters to the top of those columns, or I could select the numbers to the left of those rows. And all you need to do is find a line in between numbers or rows and see how my cursor turns into a double-sided arrow. That double-sided arrow, if I click down, I can move the height to be a little bit bigger, but instead of just changing one column height, it's going to change all of them. Let's see. I release, and look how all of those columns have changed to the same height. The same thing goes for changing our column size. Again, I'm going to select the entire column by clicking on the letters above, holding that down, and now I find a line in between those letters, and I get my double-sided arrow. That double-sided arrow, I then click down, and I can pull to the right, and it will increase the width of each of those columns the same amount. So now, the width of my columns will all be, let's get perfectly to 16, beautiful. They will all be 16. Another way to change the size of my columns, if I have made a mistake, is to go to Format our cells. So at the very top, I click on Format, and I come down to Column, and I can change the width. Here, by clicking on Width, I can simply type in how many inches I would like those columns to be in width, and then press OK. I'm going to stick with the size I have right now. If I'd like to change the height of my columns, again, I can select those columns, go to Format. This time I select Rows because I'm talking about rows, and I can change the height, and I can type in my desired height. Again, press OK, and you're ready to move on. Step 5, adding borders. This is the step when people feel like they've really accomplished something, so I think you're going to like this step. Borders just mean that you're adding a dark shading around each of the boxes that you want. So I'm going to select all of the boxes that I would like to have borders around, and at the top, in this box right here, you'll see borders underneath the size of our font, and I can again click that arrow down to give me some more options. I really like starting with having all of my borders highlighted just so I can see where my boxes actually are standing. So I click on, again, all borders, and now I've added a line surrounding each of my boxes. If I'd like to change that, I can add or change where I have lines by clicking on right, left, top, or bottom borders. This is something that you can just play with. Step 6, again, this should be the last step that you take because merging cells should never, ever be used in order to change the size of a cell. That's where I find students have the biggest problems later on because instead of making their columns or rows taller or wider by changing their size, they like to go and do some merging. Please don't fall down that rabbit hole. When I look at my data table, I see that the entire top should be our title. It looks like all of those words are in one box. That means that those should be merged. So I select all 4 of those boxes. And in this center up here, I see Merge and Center. I'm going to click on that Merge button, or I can look for more options as you see using the arrow down. Merge and Center is going to put my data in the center of the box. Merge Across, we'll put it on the right. We're going to stick with Merge and Center, and I now have all of that writing for my title in one box. I notice in my data table there's one other place where merging has occurred, and that is at the top where we have left side and where we have right side. Left side, it looks like it covers 2 columns, so I'm going to select those 2 boxes and I'm going to merge left side. And then I haven't even written our right side, so I will add that in. And again, I'm going to select the 2 columns that it seems to be covering over M2 and D2. I will select right side, those 2 columns, and again, just click merge and center, and I have merged all of the boxes that I need to. If you have made a mistake and you do not want to merge those boxes, go ahead and click that merge and center again, and it will undo any work that you've done. Again, I'm going to remerge because we do want those merged in this situation. We're going to pause there for now, and we'll come back soon.